San Francisco Bay Area, California, they are different. Specifically talking San Francisco, the penalties are typically very much like what they would be for an alcohol DUI. On a DUI drugs, you're looking at a probation, which is typically 3 years, a fine somewhere between $1,600 to $1,800. Having to do a DUI school, typically it's a 3-month school. Having to have your license suspended by DMV for a period of time. The difference between a DUI drugs and DUI alcohol, though, is that if you do get a DUI drugs, you're not going to be able to get an ignition interlock restricted license because those only measure alcohol, not drugs. So you're potentially facing a 6-month license suspension. And it's a lot worse if it's a second or third offense. There are things that can be done in these cases to minimize these penalties. There can be other penalties added on or negotiated. Sometimes they want AA or NA meetings, doing a MAD VIP, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Victim Impact Panel online program, which usually costs $60-something, and it takes 2 or 3 hours to do. That's something that in San Francisco they will these days want out of a conviction for DUI drugs. If we can get the charges reduced to a wet reckless, it's a much better situation. The good news is that for the separate administrative per se DMV hearing, typically if it's a DUI drugs, we can get, if they don't on their own, the Department of Motor Vehicles to dismiss the action because there's no alcohol involved. They can still bring an action claiming that you have an issue with drugs, bring a physical and mental or some type of an addiction hearing where we would have to, basically show a DMV hearing officer that you do not have an issue, or what we will usually show them that you've seen a medical doctor, that you've done a program or you're on some medication, and that you have been testing. And they usually want to see about 3 months of clean testing before they will be willing to reinstate your license. So very often what we'll do is get a stay of suspension for one of those hearings if we can, having our client, then being able to keep driving while the hearing is pending and putting all this evidence for them together so that we can present it at the hearing time and say, look, we've got 3 months of pattern. We filled out the medical information. The doctors filled it out. The client's, done everything to show that they do not have a current problem, or I should say that they have addressed it and a doctor feels that they're safe to drive and they've done X amount of, time in doing meetings or outpatient program or whatever it is, or they most importantly show that they've been clean and done drug tests for at least 3 months, sometimes more, and then we can save a license. So penalties can be very harsh in these cases. I mean, a DUI drugs counts as a first offense if it's your first DUI. If you get an alcohol DUI or any other type of DUI within the next 10 years, that would be a second. So it's priorable. And it's also something that can, keep you out of Canada. It can do a lot of negative things. It can mess with when you're, trying to rent or buy places with specific professional licenses, liquor licenses, and obviously for insurance purposes, your insurance will go through the roof or your company may drop you. And those rates very often remain extremely high for at least 4 or 5 years. So penalties for a DUI drugs in San Francisco, the best way to get the least amount of penalties and to minimize the damage is to hire the best DUI lawyer you can, someone who's experienced with the county of San Francisco or whatever county that you're in, and someone who does just DUI defense or mainly DUI defense. You also want to make sure that there's someone who's a member of California DUI Lawyers Association and the National College for DUI Defense. Those are very important credentials. That means that these people are on listservs and they're keeping up with all the latest defenses, and that they're mainly focused on DUI, which means they're focused on getting the best possible results for their clients who have been arrested for DUI drugs.